All right, so we're going to talk about social transformation. You remember we were talking about social entrepreneurship and how social entrepreneurship is about changing equilibriums, right? You have one status quo, and then you make some kind of intervention to change it to a whole new status quo. That's what social transformation is all about. We've seen a variety of kinds of periods of stability throughout society, and we've seen periods of rapid change in various ways. Here's an example. So we've got kind of two ways of transformation, one that's government-led and one that's business-led. So government-led, we've seen transformation happen in terms of like the civil rights movement, right? We've got, so the United States started off, this Constitution, about equality and everything, but it still allowed slavery. It still did not have women be voting. And so over time, we've had different transformations happen where laws have been changed, right? This year, it's the 100th anniversary of women having the right to vote. We've had laws in like 1963, the Civil Rights Act, start to change things. Now, it hasn't solved every issue, but it has taken something from one equilibrium to a whole nother equilibrium. And we'll see probably multiple kinds of equilibriums change over time. We see it also in the business world here, right? From the Industrial Revolution. Look at GDP over time from 1 AD until, this is actually till 1990. For over 1,000 years, you've got basically GDP increasing by 7 times, and then just in the last 100 or so years, it increasing by over 50 times. So for an example, you have Edison here, right? Edison didn't invent the electric light. It was already invented. But what he did is he took it to a different level. He created an innovation, right, which was the first commercially viable electric light bulb. And his innovation didn't stop there. It was all about the infrastructure that he ended up creating that became General Electric, and that turned into that transformation that we see now, right, where we can be in a kind of a dark room, what would have been a dark room, and now we can work and study. Plants can run 24 hours. We can create an economy that that is way more productive because of that. The other example, right, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak creating the personal, they didn't create the first personal computer, but they created the first viable personal computer used by people. And then of course we have, this, right? Turning it all mobile, right? Turning everything mobile, and that has created a whole nother business transformation. So just trying to give you guys some ideas as to what I'm talking about in terms of social transformation here. Here's another way of looking at it. It's combining both aspects of the business side of social transformation and the government-led side. And so we've already talked about shared value. Played a little video of Michael Porter talking about the idea of shared value, and I gave the example of Coca-Cola, for instance, working with the World Wildlife Federation and trying to create clean water in India, which is the main ingredient in a can of Coca-Cola, so that they could continue to deliver their product into the future, right? So what's really needed, though, to create this transformation? Because it's not just, we're not talking about something incremental, we're talking about something that's actually disruptive. And so there's this idea that Clayton Christensen has come up with that's about disruptive innovation. And he also, and the reading for today is about applying that idea to social change. Okay, so but first let's talk about what is innovation in general, right? It's different than invention, right? It has to be novel. You have to be able to leverage it or use it in some way, and it needs to be implemented successfully, right? So even if Edison had, created this commercially viable electric light bulb, if he hadn't also helped build the power generation infrastructure, it probably wouldn't be successfully implemented. It might have been just used in small areas of the country and not over the entire world. Here's another example. Tata Nano has the cheapest car in the world. How much do you think the cheapest car goes for? What do you think? Give me a number. Cheapest new. 6,000. 6,000? That's a good, that would be a pretty cheap car, right, for new? Right? 15,000, 14,000, 12,000? This is $1,900. $1,900. So they had to, that's almost unbelievably cheap, right? So this is something that Tata came up with as an alternative. This is looking at the Indian market as an alternative to people riding on scooters, families riding on scooters in busy traffic. And they thought this would be a little bit safer. Everybody could be in it. And so they have a number of new patents that design the car entirely different. So you had extensive use of hydroforming and roll forming in order so that you don't have so many different parts, so it's cheaper to actually put together, right? You don't have air conditioning. You have the seats with integrated headrests instead of, again, separate parts. You have only 3 lug nuts instead of more, right? You have 1 windshield wiper. You have, so it's just a lot cheaper. Of course, that's not legal on our roads. There's safety standards. And in fact, so this came about in 2008, and actually it's this year that they are discontinuing it. So it started off useful and novel, and the patents seem to be successfully implemented at first, but now safety is catching up with them. And so now it actually is a failure. In fact, it is the only car that has ever gotten a 0 in safety testing. So you should watch the video of it just smashing up. So not very safe. And so Tata's decided actually to go into the high-end level of cars. Kind of different. Well, so I wanted to, so let me just play you a video about how we can take these innovations and be disruptive with these innovations. And so there's 5 different ways that we can use innovation to be disruptive, and then we'll apply it in a social context. So now let's take a look at how these innovative strategies maybe can be deployed for social change. So a lot of time, so Christensen focuses really on this idea of the good enough alternative or a simple alternative for understanding customers. And Warby Parker, have you guys heard of Warby Parker? They sell glasses online. Are glasses cheap? No, they're very expensive, aren't they, right? And in fact, most glasses are actually sold by one company. Luxottica owns multiple brands, most of the brands out there. So they are going in and trying to disrupt in 2 different ways, disrupting the prescription eyewear market and also looking to create some social change. So here's one of the co-founders of Warby Parker talking about this. So he talks about the government-led transformation and the business-led transformation together. And so he's a social entrepreneur. He's got that buy one, give one model. If you look back to the innovative strategies, which of these innovative strategies is he really using? Probably eliminating activities in the value chain, right? Because he doesn't have a store, it's just online, right? So that's a different thing. What you do is you order and you get sent several different pairs of glasses, or they have software that shows what you look like with those glasses on and stuff like that. He's probably also a low-end disruptor, right? $95 for a pair of glasses. So he's coming in low, and maybe some of these other models are $500, $600. So probably these two in particular is what he's doing. Maybe even potentially the mass customization in terms of what you can actually get, right? Have it customized to you, but sending it out to many people. Yeah, Peyton.
Number 5, like everyone else is selling high-end stuff, and he comes in and starts selling low-end stuff, the first person to do it.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that could be. I mean, because at the low end, it's kind of, they're all maybe cheap, not necessarily great material and whatnot, and it's not the same type of people who would buy the Warby Parker. So yeah, it could be that too. Yeah, indefinitely. So it's novel, useful, successfully implemented. Look, he says how much money that they've made. It's been a big hit, right? Here's another example: Minute Clinic. Minute Clinic started in Minneapolis and ended up getting bought by CVS. And so you'll find in CVS, it's part of their initiative, CVS Health. So Minute Clinic is about, they're trying to create systemic change through scaling. So CVS is all throughout the US here. And so they're putting it into all their places. They're looking at maybe an overserved market. So, for instance, you don't have to go into a whole hospital full of doctors and whatnot. You don't have to see a doctor for a little cold or just to get a shot. And so what they do is they have nurse practitioners who are here. They don't need a full RN to service this, so they have nurse practitioners. So they're offering something that's good enough. They're using resources that are maybe unattractive to hospitals. So many hospitals now require only RNs and not LPNs or other kinds of licensed insurers. So, but Minute Clinic says that's good enough for us, good enough to give you a shot and those kinds of things. So far, 350,000 patients, 99% satisfaction rate. Let me play you a Motley Fool show. Have you guys heard of Motley Fool? It's an investment organization. Sometimes in the paper there'll be a Motley Fool column that'll talk about and discuss what are companies doing and how is it going. So here's a discussion about CVS's recent initiatives that have going beyond just Minute Clinic. Okay, well, so obviously we were saying if it's an innovation, it's got to be novel, it's got to be useful, it's got to be executed correctly. And so that's kind of the big question coming up. You'll have to watch to see if CVS actually incorporates this new health system. They're basically using prototypes of this in just a few stores right now, and they're going to try to scale it up in order to create a systemic change with its yoga classes. We'll see if that's actually useful or not. But it's looking at a different model of how health is used, right? Health is usually kind of this transactional thing. You go to the hospital to get fixed and then you come back. But because now there's so many kinds of chronic conditions that we have, we need a different way of interacting in order to keep us healthy. So kind of my final thing here is looking at Kickstart, not Kickstarter, but Kickstart International. This is a company that's looking at trying to get a status quo unstuck. And so here's a look at how they do this disruptive innovation. They met a need in an underserved market. Scaled it up, and with a good enough product. Right? It wasn't some fandangly thing. It's just a good enough pump. And which is my final idea is, in order to create this social change, you need to use these techniques of catalytic innovation, which is this disruptive social change. So, all right, that's all I've got for you guys.